Good evening. I'm Bill Moyers. The captain called it the glorious loyalty oath crusade, and as he told his squadron, people who really did owe allegiance to their country would be proud to pledge it as often as he forced them to. So every enlisted man was required to sing the Star-Spangled Banner before using the ketchup in the mess hall, and each crew member had to sign an oath before picking up his parachute. The entire camp snarled into a knot of pledging and singing soldiers, and bombing missions over enemy lines were delayed for hours. The Loyalty Oath Crusade was fiction, a story created nearly 30 years ago by one of America's great masters of the absurd. But as he tells us tonight, sometimes you can't tell the difference between absurdity and politics. Join me for a conversation with Joseph Heller.
This program is made possible by a grant from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. A World of Ideas with Bill Moyers.
Joseph Heller has some bad news and some good news. If you think the system is crazy, he says, well, you're right, but at least you're sane enough to tell. Since its publication in 1961, Heller's black comedy about men at war made Catch-22 part of our language and turned a soldier named Yossarian into one of the memorable anti-heroes of American literature, and the star of the movie based on the novel. Heller followed Catch-22 with other novels about American culture and politics. Something Happened, God Knows, Good as Gold. This fall there is a new one. Picture this, as Joseph Heller looks at democracy in the time of Socrates. I talked with Joe Heller at his home in East Hampton, New York. I did stay up until the wee hours reading a second time your novel Good as Gold, which caused me to laugh out loud at 3 o'clock in the morning, leaning up on the couch. The White House assistant who runs around saying, we're going to tell the truth even if we have to lie to do it. A president who sits up his whole year, first year in office, writing a book about it, doing nothing but writing a book. The assistant who says, we don't want yes men in this administration. We want men of independent integrity who will then agree with everything we decide to do. Why is politics so funny to you?
Almost everything in Good as Gold about politics that is presented with the intention of making a reader laugh is drawn from things that were actually going on almost a daily basis. American politics is funny. There are many things that one could say in criticism of it, and a few things one can say in praise, and one of the things you can say in both praise and criticism is that it is ludicrously funny. What I say in Good as Gold, I say it specifically, is that politics is important to someone like Bruce Gold, is not because of the power so much, but because of the social acceptance, the social prestige. You travel with a better class of people. and as Ralph Newsom says, you'll meet pretty women of all kinds. You get invited to big parties.
Well, I guess it's a good thing then that we look to politics for so much entertainment. I mean, entertainment now dominates the staging of politics.
Well,
public drama.
It's disgusting to realize that there are organizations and specialists who exist in grooming and advising a candidate for office, whether it's from a mayoralty, a gubernatorial election, or a federal election. And isn't it, they tell them what to wear, how to stand, where to sit, what to say. But isn't it equally disgusting that we know about it? and we're not revolted by that.
It's the soap opera. Politics is the soap opera, and these are the people who are writing the scripts for the soap opera. And we know that we're watching a soap opera, but we watch it and respond to it.
Well, politics for me has become a spectator sport. It has become less and less entertaining for me over the years, so I'm less and less interested in it. I have been. I have not voted for perhaps 20 or 25 years. But even as a spectator sport, as I say, like other sports, it's less and less interesting to me. And I feel it's, I've come to a rather cynical belief that has been held by a large number of American conservatives, beginning with the Constitutional Convention and philosophers in Victorian England and in Athens, that there are many illusions incorporated in democratic philosophy. They tend to be very pleasing and satisfying, but they are misleading and they are fantasies. And one of them is that the democratic ideal is even possible, that there is such a thing as participatory democracy. I think one of the illusions we have, and it's very comforting, is that by voting, we are participating in government. I maintain that is a delusion. It is a ritual routine. The right to vote, I feel, is indispensable to our contentment. In application, it is absolutely useless.
You say it's a ritualistic routine, but isn't the ritual important to the notion of democracy?
That's where the delusion is, that one's vote matters at all. It doesn't. That the election matters. It doesn't. That the victorious party will be responsive to the wishes of those electing it. That is not true.
I've seen elections where a change, John Kennedy's election, the
Yeah.
change of one vote in every precinct in America would have elected Richard Nixon.
We can't guess, but I'm inclined to feel that it's something of a sentimental daydream to believe that things would have been significantly different if John Kennedy had not been assassinated, or if Nixon had won, or if...
It's not cynical, it's fatalistic.
Well,
it's
yeah.
as if our fate is sealed.
Well, after doing this novel Picture This, where I studied history, I've come to the conclusion that men don't make history. I think history makes personalities. There is, it's almost Shakespeare, there is a tide in the affairs of men.
My senior paper in history at the University of Texas consisted of one question. Did Lincoln make his times, or did the times make Lincoln? And I started out by saying yes.
To which one?
I think it's both. Why did you go back to ancient Greece? You're so fascinated by American life today, by
well,
politics.
I went back to ancient Greece for this novel because I was interested in writing about American life today and about Western civilization today. And in ancient Greece, now centered on Athens, but not Athens in isolation, in Athens, in relation to the other cities of ancient Greece, I found striking parallels and grim parallels.
Grim?
Oh, very grim, extremely grim. In the war between Sparta and Athens,
Peloponnesian War.
Yeah, I can see a prototype for the Cold War between this country and Russia. From the beginning of the defeat over Hitler to the near war between Russia and the U.S., I make, if it's not there, I certainly make the correspondence between Athens and Sparta. In Picture This, the subject is not war so much, although wars are continuous in American history. One of the lines I like in Picture This is the one that I have where, following a series of statements, that peace on earth would mean the end of civilization as we know it. But between Athens and now, war is continuous.
Now, our notion, the popular notion of Greece today, is of a wise, humane, intelligent, moderate society. Yeah. Is that what you found when you went back?
No, I didn't find it at all. In fact, I found as democracy was instituted, it became more chaotic, more corrupt, more warlike. Another thing I learned from Athenian history, and it's corroborated by our own, is it is much easier for the leader of a country to make war than to administer to the domestic problems of that society.
Well, my favorite passage in Picture This is a very short one. The motion in the Athenian Assembly, the Congress of Greece, the motion in the Athenian Assembly to invade Syracuse was deceitful, corrupt, stupid, chauvinistic, irrational, and suicidal. It passed by a huge majority. What are you trying to say to us?
What I'm trying to say is that the emotions of people in a democratic society are no more rational than they are in any other type of society. They are manipulated. It is the function of a leader in a democracy, if he wishes to be a leader and retain popular support, to manipulate the emotions and the ideas of the population. And in the case of the motion to invade Syracuse, which looked at in retrospect, and even at the time, the argument of the man opposing it was absolutely irrational, suicidal, and pointless, and romantic. One of Plato's biggest fears, and one of his most severe criticisms of Athenian democracy was that, I'm trying to quote the translation accurately, was that the people would set up a popular leader to champion a popular cause. Now, to us, we would assume that that is the function of a political leader, to give the people what they want. For Plato, that would mean a chaotic government, A government run by people, responsive to the wishes of the people, he felt would be a government administered by people who had no control over public affairs. Give the people what you want, and the leaders would not be controlling government. The people would be controlling the various acts of government and decisions of government. I think if he were living today, he would see that those fears have been realized. What do we have in campaign in the primaries? What do we have in election? I think I said it earlier. Candidates making promises they know they can't keep or would not want to keep to people they feel are gullible enough to believe them for the sole purpose of getting elected.
Are not making promises about what they know they have to do anyway, saying we're not going to raise taxes when they know either there are going to be more taxes or an ever-increasing deficit, which will burden the future generations.
That is one of the defects of popular government, that you find Aristotle, Plato, Socrates being spoken of through Plato. You find Macaulay saying H.L. Mencken in his writing, that he was a conservative man, Baltimorean, he has more scathing criticism of capitalistic America and its forms of government than anybody I can recall.
What about Socrates? I'm struck by the fact that two men I admire very much as writers, you and I.F. Stone, have both written this year, published this year, about Socrates. What makes Socrates such a fetching figure?
For me, he's appealing because, number one, he has no reality other than the idealization given him by Plato. Socrates, I was amused to learn, never wrote a word. He was too smart to be a philosopher. He's one of these men that I believe exists in every advanced culture, about whom we never hear, and who are truly the wisest men in the society because they have transcended the human vanity, the ambition to be noted for their wisdom. Socrates never wrote a word. We have Plato's philosophy is not particularly, but Plato's 4 books dealing with the death of Socrates are famous, particularly the death scene of Plato, of Socrates in his last words, with which I begin the novel, and with which I ended. In a way, he's as fascinating as Hamlet because since he's so vague, you can see in him what you want.
I like the description in your book of him. I find appealing what you say, but he would not violate the law to save his life. He did not know if the law was good, but he knew what it was, and he would not flee Athens to avoid his trial or execution. Something admirable in
well,
that.
That's why I idealize him, and that's why the apology of Plato's Apology is one of the imperishable works of Western literature. That was Socrates.
Did you learn anything about our society by looking back at Socrates' time?
I did not. No. My opinion of this society did not change. It's not a wholly negative opinion.
No,
again,
it's
a
paradoxical opinion.
Well, if you expect the democratic system of government to provide efficient government, you're going to be disappointed. Again, Hamilton and Jefferson and Carlyle and others assumed that in an industrial society, the captains of industry would and should be the political leaders. They assumed that they would be men of intelligence, men of integrity, men of vision, and men who, having achieved wealth, would no longer have the accumulation of wealth as their goal and would be interested in the public good. That has not happened, as we know. Let me say something else, too. If we're going to talk about good government, I will confess that I don't know what good government is or what good government should be, and I don't believe anybody else knows, and I don't know that we could reach agreement on it. In a general way, we could say we would like a president who does not lie. He may keep secrets. He may say, we would prefer a president who does not lie. We would prefer an administration whose members do not use their position to accumulate more wealth for themselves or for their family or their friends, who are not cheats in one way or another.
So the fact that democracy is absurd doesn't make it undesirable?
Oh, there's no other form of government that I can envision or you can envision that we would prefer to it. We would prefer that we had a better class of public officials than we have. And if elected to office, they were serious about their responsibility. They were more responsible to their office than they were to the people who financed their coming to office, that they did assume a public trust, that they did regard, instead of as what Bruce Gold said, as good as gold, that the only responsibility of office is to stay in office.
The theme, to me, and every reader finds his own theme in a novel, the theme of Catch-22 to me was the perverse nature of human intentions, that the regulations designed to save us wound up strangling us in the war. And I wonder if, and Yossarian stood up against those. He said his no, as you indicated, and rowed out to sea. If he came rowing up out here on the south shore of Long Island this afternoon, what do you think would be the theme of the novel you would now cast about him?
If he came rowing up, I would say to him, get out of here. Don't destroy a good ending. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want him coming up here and being acclaimed a hero and taking part in the same social life I'm taking part. You would have him on this program instead of me.
That's exactly right. He may be more interesting to us.
Well, you'd say, where have you been all these years? I do think that this exists in Catch-22. It was Murray Kempton in a column who pointed that out. The morality in Catch-22 is orthodox morality. The ideology of democracy is a very good, perfect ideology. The faults come from the human application. There are human defects. There are people, there is greed, there is self-interest, there are what I would call parochial loyalties. There are people who ambition and greed, who find ways, who find loopholes to further their own ambitions, whatever they are, well, without evading the law or evading the law in safety. The fundamental ethics, I think, with the possible exception of the sexual, that medieval and traditional still prevail. I believe we all know that a lie is a vice. We do know that greed is a vice. And all the other seven deadly sins. We know that patriotism is a virtue, provided we can define what patriotism is and provide there's a popular national cause which calls upon it. It is, I think, the defect of human nature. Let me give you a sentence. All societies we know of are governed by the selfish interests of the ruling class or classes. Can you think of many to whom that would not apply, many countries or societies?
No.
That statement was made by Plato in about 380 BC in the Republic. All societies we know of are governed by the selfish interests of the ruling class. Can you think of many societies between Plato's Athens and today to whom that would not apply in very large part?
No.
So we are living in more dangerous times than in the past because our techniques of annihilation have improved. We have nuclear weapons now, we have nerve gases. But the nature of society, I'm sorry to say I discovered in thinking about Picture This, they don't seem to change much for the better.
There is a contrast in Catch-22 and Picture This I want to ask you about. In Catch-22, Yossarian becomes a hero after he decides that the system really is insane, and he escapes it. He becomes a hero by escaping it. He leaves in that rowboat and is heading for Scandinavia, pulling himself away from the shore. But in Picture This, your new book, nobody escapes.
Well, in Catch-22, he doesn't escape, he's trying to escape. And he is put in a situation by me, which is manipulated for that, in which his choices are accept the corruption and benefit by it. Join us, become one of the boys, we'll give you a promotion, we'll send you home a hero. Or else go into prison for refusing to fly war missions, or fly wars forever until he eventually will be killed, or asserting himself. And the only way he can assert himself without accepting any other alternative is to say no. He knows he's not going to get to Sweden, and it ends with him going out the door. And he is the major character, and he does become, he is idealized, but he also becomes an idealist. In Picture This, there is no one character who is a strong hero. Socrates probably comes closer to it than anybody else. Aristotle is there as a presence. They're different books. I don't want to write the same book. There is an element of hope in Catch-22, and it ends in a very positive nature. Picture This doesn't. Picture This begins almost begins with a quotation of Henry Ford, and the quotation's repeated at the end. History is bunk, said Henry Ford. B-U-N-K. I have trouble pronouncing. So, and what I'm trying to say is I don't believe what you read. For a while, I thought impishly of ending Picture This with the line, don't believe anything you read. But I did not want to undermine myself to that extent.
Is your not voting a kind of identity with the Osarians, saying no?
No, it isn't.
Say no?
No, I'm not vote because I get no pleasure out, no satisfaction. I cannot no longer titillate myself with the feeling I am participating in the results of the election, because that I know my vote will not make a difference. I've been as disappointed in the Democrats as I've been in Republicans. I'm never disappointed in Republicans because the only Republican I've ever voted for was Senator Keating in New York when Robert Kennedy ran against him. And at that time, Senator Keating was speaking against the Vietnam War, and Robert Kennedy was not.
But see, what you're doing is assaulting a fundamental premise that's been drilled into us in this country, which I think I still believe, that the individual matters, that the individual counts. The accumulated effect of our joint expression is to be heard.
I agree with that. And one of the themes of Picture This that I deplore is that the individual does not count. It does not count to governments. Governments are not normally concerned with the welfare of the people they govern. History is not concerned with them. I have, again, a very swift comparison in Picture This, where I mention a stream of what's happening during Rembrandt's life, that the potato was brought over from South America and cultivated successfully in Europe during the 30 Years' War. And then I say the cultivation of potato was more important to more people than was Rembrandt's painting of Aristotle or William Harvey's discovery of the circulation of blood. Potato kept thousands, tens of thousands of people alive. You will not read about it. You read a history book, Great Events in Civilization, European Civilization, you will not read that the potato was brought there and cultivated. I do believe the individual is important. It's very strong in Catch-22. It's strong. All my books, I feel it very strongly.
Maybe good government is that government which assures the survival of the republic and honors the individual even when it has to deny the individual his seeming gratification by refusing to flatter him. Maybe good government is that government which doesn't flatter the demos, the mob, doesn't give in to the passions of the people.
It would be fine, but then what would their objective be? Would it be to improve the living conditions of the population? Or would it be simply to improve the gross national product? We tend to measure progress by profit, by manufacture, by dollars. It's one way of looking at progress and looking at the well-being of a country, the economy. It's not the only way, and in that type of environment. We're living now where we have more instant multimillionaires per year than possibly any nation ever had in its history. At the same time, we do have more homeless. We have problems here. I think you and I and all our listeners would agree, and people affairs truthfully, even professional politicians would agree that an efficient level of government is preferable to an inefficient level. An unselfish administration is preferable to a selfish administration. The problem we face is how to achieve it. And
that's the old dilemma.
Well, there's no known way, you know.
You didn't find one in Athens, did you?
Didn't find one in Athens. I think we at the same time that we are always complaining about the quality of government, and the complaints about have existed since the government was founded, we delude ourselves and create a kind of pantheon of public officials of past presidents. Yeah. And I'm going to speak now a little presumptuously, precipitously, but from my own experience, my own judgment, I think with the exception of FDR in the first 4 years, I don't think we've had an exceptional president. I think we had Thomas Jefferson, Madison had exceptional minds. I think Jimmy Carter is outstanding for his good character. But other than that, I'm going back to the question about Lincoln. I don't know if the presidential decisions have been that important. I think there would have been a civil war. I don't think whether Lincoln, if Lincoln had not been elected, whichever Republican had been elected, the South was ready to secede at that time.
Do you lay that at the step of democracy or at the step of modern times?
No, I think that if you look at the history of monarchies, you would find the exceptional king, the accident of birth and circumstance was a blessing, but they appeared intermittently. There's no system I can envision that would elevate to office the kind of people that we would like to see elevated.
From East Hampton, New York, this has been a conversation with Joseph Heller. I'm Bill Moyers.
This program was made possible by a grant from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. For a transcript of this program, send $3 to A World of Ideas, Journal Graphics, 277 Broadway, New York, New York, 10007. Video cassette information is also available at this address.
I'm Bill Moyers. A lot has been said and done in the name of the public good. But what does it mean? To Robert Bella, it can be something as simple as a meal shared with family and friends. Join us next time on A World of Ideas.